Hey there, Orioles fans. Today is September 16th, 2024. Welcome back in to the Talkin O podcast. As always, I'm your host, Evan, and coming on today's episode, we'll be recapping the weekend series against the Tigers. We'll also be talking about the Orioles' potential playoff rotation. We'll also be recapping Friday's game first. Friday night was a real disaster for the offense, in which the Tigers took a no-hit bid into the ninth inning, in which their only hit that game was a Gunnar Henderson triple off of Tigers reliever Tyler Holton. Nothing really interesting happened that game, as Zach Eflin did have a strong start, which was the only great start of the game. Besides the depressing offense, he did went 6 2/3 innings, allowed one run on 5 hits. He now falls to 5-2 with the Orioles, while still holding a great 2.22 ERA. His season ERA is a 3.55 ERA. And let's go ahead and move on to Saturday's game, in which the offense really picked itself back up again, and almost getting no hit on Friday. Burns had a good game on Saturday. He went 7 innings of shutout baseball, only allowed 2 hits, and struck out 7. We did all know that Burns still had it in him because pitchers, sometimes have slumps, just like hitters. And it was a seasonal thing that both hitters and pitchers go through, just like last year when he was in Milwaukee. That's why he finished the year with a 3.39 ERA for the Brewers last year. The Orioles scored first in the third inning as Cedric Mullins had an RBI single off of Tigers starter Ty Madden to score Gunnar Henderson. The Orioles then scored again in the seventh inning on a Gunnar Henderson 2-run blast out the right field. Sir Anthony Dominguez got the save for the Orioles on Saturday night. He has been better since they've given up those 2 walk-off home runs in that series against the Mets. Now let's go ahead and recap Sunday's game. Then I'll go ahead and get into a little special part of the video. The Orioles made a roster move on Sunday morning, reinstating Heston Kjerstad and Jacob Webb from the IL, DFAing Nick Maton and Cole Irvin. As of recording this episode, Cole Irvin has been claimed off waivers by the Minnesota Twins. Cade Povich pitched on Sunday, and he kind of had a bit of a good start, going 5 innings, a 2-run ball, gave up 2 hits, 2 walks, and struck out 8 on 89 pitches. The only 2 runs the Orioles scored was on an Adley Rutschman 2-run home run that was crushed to right field. The Orioles then lost that game 4-2, just like on Friday. Now let's go ahead and time for the first ever edition on Down on the Farm, where I recap AAA games that happened over the weekend. Also, these parts of the videos will only be on Monday episodes. Let's go ahead and recap Friday's game against Durham. Samuel Basallo hit an RBI single in the first inning. Brandon Young also had a good start for the Tides, going 5 innings of shutout baseball, and allowed 3 hits, walked 1, and struck out 4. I feel like the Orioles should call him up, as he is doing pretty well in AAA for the Tides, but that might happen next year, as they probably couldn't call him up right now, because, he wouldn't be eligible for the postseason. The game did go into extras, and Samuel Basallo came through again, having his 3rd hit of the night, this time a go-ahead RBI single. The Tides eventually lost this game on a walk-off by Durham. Now let's go ahead and recap Saturday's game for the Tides. Sorry, I said Sunday there. Carlos Severa had a no-hitter for the Tides until it was broken by a solo home run. He did go 5 hitless innings, struck out 7, and walked 2. Norfolk did have their first run on a double steal that brought in a run. They then went into extra innings for a second consecutive night, and Forrest Wall knocked in a run in the 11th inning to run the game. They won the game 2-1. Now let's go ahead and recap Sunday's game now. Terran Vavra hit a 3-run home run for the Tides in the second inning, putting up 3-0 early. The Tides eventually won the game, as Danny Coulomb was pitching in the game for his rehab assignment, which he might be coming back soon, just in time for the postseason. Now let's go ahead and move on to the final segment of the video, in which we will talk about the Orioles' potential playoff rotation. The Orioles might be making a playoff run this year, and maybe the Orioles could make it to the World Series this year. Here are my predictions for the Orioles' starting rotation in the 2024 postseason. If you can line them up perfectly, I would go Corbin Burns, Zach Eflin, and Dean Kramer. We could even see Cade Povich pitch in the postseason too, if the Orioles don't want to pitch Kramer in Game 3 of a playoff series. Now that will do it for this episode of the Talkin O podcast. I will be back on Friday to recap the rest of the games this week in the major leagues, not AAA. But until then, I'm Evan, and this has been the Talkin O podcast.